Welcome to our YouTube channel. We are librarians at the Norman Williams Public Library in Woodstock, Vermont. And today we're bringing you some book recommendations by the way of rapid review. And rapid means rapid. Each one of us will give our review in 1 minute or less. And you must understand that this is very difficult for us because we are a very chatty group that loves to talk a lot. And away we go.
Julie Berry is a master of young adult historical fiction. She explores medieval France in The Passion of Dulce, the Victorian era in The Scandalous Sisterhood of Prickwillow Place, and now the First and Second World Wars in her newest novel, Lovely War. This is the romantic story of 4 young adults as told by the goddess Aphrodite, who after being caught by her husband in her own romantic tryst with Ares, god of war, must spin their tale or face her own judgment. As her defense, Aphrodite tells the tale of Hazel, James, Aubrey, and Colette, a pianist, a sharpshooter, an African-American jazz composer, and a survivor of German slaughter in Belgium. The lives of these characters intersect during World War I in London and France, and serve to prove Aphrodite's strength as goddess of love, even in the face of war. Various gods, reflecting the human characters, tell parts of the story that he or she has been witness to. Ultimately, Aphrodite is presenting evidence to her husband of who she is and what true love is and her role in it. The narrative seamlessly alternates between Aphrodite's trial and the tale she tells.
I am reviewing When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir by Patrice Cullers, who is one of the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement. It's nonfiction, it's a biography, it's in our biography section. I listened to the audio of it, which was really, the author read it, which sometimes is good and sometimes isn't good. In this case, it was good. Patrice grew up in a poor neighborhood of Los Angeles and so experienced firsthand the oppression of society and the police, police constantly hovering around the neighborhood, just, waiting to pounce on whoever they could pounce on. So it's a hard childhood. Her father was arrested for no real good reason. Her brother was arrested a few times for no real good reason. She talks about her family, and she had the luck to go to a high school focused on social activism, where she learned how to do social activism, basically. And so she talks about her family, and she has an intentional family of friends that keep each other solid through this thing. It's an inspiring story. It's eye-opening, and it's ultimately positive. But the Black Lives Matter movement really got going after the murder of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown. So anyway, it's enlightening, it's timely, and I really enjoyed it.
I am reviewing Sea Wife by Amelia Gage. Hoping to refresh their marriage, Michael and Juliet decide to take their 2 children, ages 7 and 3, on a year-long sailing trip. Where does a mistake begin? Juliet asks. Did my mistake begin with the boat, or did it begin with the marriage itself? Half of the story comes from Juliet, who, for reasons we come to understand later, begins telling her story while on the floor of her husband's closet. The other half comes from Michael, but only comes by way of reading the ship's log, which he kept during the journey. The children, other sailors, and a mysterious cohort of Michael's do contribute to the story, but this is mainly the story of the inner workings of their marriage. We are told that marriages have failure points, just like boats. And boy, that's the truth of it. Batten down the hatches, rough seas ahead.
One of the treats this spring was What It's Like to Be a Bird. Lovely, large format book for all ages. Another book by the author David Allensible, who's well known for doing his birding guides. This one can be dipped into and dipped out of, and I'm going to give you an example of that. In the introduction, one of the points is storing food, And one of them is a group of acorn woodpeckers can store thousands of acorns for later use. And then it'll say, see page 89 top. I loved this little factoid. This was one of my favorite things. The acorn woodpecker, found in the southwestern US, has the unique habit of drilling small holes in trees and storing an acorn in each hole. The record, an estimated 50,000 holes in one tree, probably took more than 100 years to make. I just think that's fascinating.
Oh, wow.
And it's lovely that you can just dip in and dip out, and it would be nice for birders, non-birders, and all ages.
Imagine a world map flattened onto a raised disc, and this disc world rests on the backs of continent-sized elephants. Then imagine these rest on the shell of a huge star turtle, hurtling through outer space. This is the premise of the Discworld series by British writer Sir Terry Pratchett. There are over 30 books in this series, many of them interconnected. If you like fantasy and humor and a good mystery, if you like quirky characters and logical illogic, a cheeky narrator with a sharp tongue who is ironic and philosophical at the same time, if you like laughing out loud when you read, check out the Discworld series. Where to start? Try Small Gods. It's a standalone. For the first of a series, try Guards. You'll meet Sam Vimes and the odd bumbling members of his night watch security patrol. Be prepared for trolls, werewolves, and plotting policemen and policewomen. Be prepared for crime solving. You'll meet the aloof, sardonic overseer of the city, Lord Vetinari, called the Patrician. Be prepared too for plenty of action, good characters who continue to get better, and always stay entertaining. And along the way, you'll find some deft social satire, dead on accurate for this day and this age. That's Sir Terry Pratchett, Small Gods, and Guards.
Rating of Mutts and Men by Spencer Quinn. Spencer Quinn is the author of a series of mysteries starring, or featuring rather, private investigator Bernie Little and his partner Chet. The primary narrator of the Chet and Bernie mysteries is Chet, and he has some very interesting and very unusual insights into their cases. But after all, Chet is a dog, and he's very easily distracted by an 8-pack of Slim Jims. But he is always intrepid and always resourceful, and he excels at catching perps, as he calls the criminals. This story takes place, starts with a murder, obviously. It's a murder mystery. Takes place, and it's the murder of a well-known hydrologist. And he's brutally murdered, and the police are quick to make an arrest. But Bernie doesn't think they have the right man. So he and Chet decide to go about solving the mystery and determining who the real murderer is. Along the way, they discover a conspiracy with a kind of a failing vineyard and a as yet unknown aquifer. So there's a land grab conspiracy, and there's some other things that go on and some other shenanigans. But Chet and Bernie rise to the occasion, solve the mystery, and prevent a miscarriage of justice.
I've been reading Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. And I want everyone to read it, but I actually don't want to tell anyone about it, because when I tell people about it, they say, I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to read it. But the people who I've told about it, who have read it, really love it, and they want to go on to read her other books. So I really encourage you to read Station 11. But now I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So the reason people don't want to read it is because it takes place during a pandemic. And I know we're in a pandemic, so who wants to read about a pandemic? But from my point of view, what better time to read about a pandemic? It's really much more about relationships. It does take place in the future, but it more or less starts in our present, and it follows all kinds of people from back into the past and into the future. It's something of a dystopian novel. And one of the quotes, actually there's two quotes I just want to share briefly. One is called, One is survival is insufficient, and the other is what was lost in the collapse, almost everything, but there is still such beauty. So I hope you read it.
Wonderful story called Codename Helene, and you probably can tell by the name that it's World War II. And the author is Ariel Lawhon, and she has done extensive research. It is fiction, but it is based on the real story of a female spy called Nancy Wake. Nancy was not only a spy of World War II, she was really a leader, a military leader. She was an incredible woman. She was very young. She was a journalist in Paris when the war started. And she met her husband, who was a French, very wealthy French industrialist. And all of a sudden the war started, so she wasn't free to leave. So it tells not only the relationship of her with her husband, which it does talk about a lot, but it also tells about the relationship she had with all the other people that she was involved with. She was really the leader of the group that did all the escape routes from France to Spain. I had not realized that there were a lot of people that needed to escape. And she was a wonderful leader, which in those days was pretty unusual for a woman to be in charge of all these men. She was witty, she was very, very smart, and she was very, very careful to speak her mind always, no matter what it was, whether it was good or bad. She let the men know that she was in charge, and yet she really cared about them and was concerned about them. She lived in England after the war and lived to be 98 years old. And all her medals, she got quite a few medals, one from this country, are in the Australian War Museum. And so she never did go back to Australia, where she was from. She stayed in England. And I probably shouldn't tell you this, but the author does tell you, so I guess it's all right if I say it too. Her husband was murdered because he would not tell the Germans where she was. And that was something that the author said, if you're reading my notes before you read the story, you're going to be upset that you know this. But she felt it was important that people knew the whole story.
So there you have it. Thanks for watching, and we hope you'll visit us again. We're always full of surprises, so you'll never know what's coming up next. Bye-bye.